It's me, Jennifer Owens, president of Lakeshore Advantage. Although I wish I could be on the shores of Lake Michigan, unfortunately, I am not, but we're all spring dreaming right now, so those shores behind me will be here soon. So I'm here today to get a chance to unveil with you our 2021 Business Intelligence Report. We've got a lot of great data to share, and our team will also be answering questions at the end. So if you have questions, feel free to enter them into the chat function. And if we don't get to your question by the end of the presentation, a member of our team will follow up. So let's get into it right now. So Lakeshore Advantage, for those of you who do not know us and what we do, as I mentioned, I'm Jennifer, the president. I'm also joined here today by Amanda Murray, our vice president of business solutions. So Amanda is very much the brains behind the operation, and she'll be diving into the data. Lakeshore Advantage has a diverse team and is really primarily focused on ensuring this generation and the next generation have quality jobs in our vibrant community. And we do this really by first maintaining a robust primary business base at all stages of development. That means we work with companies from startup to grown up to help them tackle economic challenges. We also look forward to overcome any barriers to growth. Our core focus of our organization is a primary employer. And those are organizations that produce goods and services that are more than can be consumed by the local economy. And therefore, they export significant portions of those goods and services outside the region. And that exporting generates indirect jobs and resources for our overall community. So today, I want to thank formally our investors who allow us to do our work. And as you look at 2021, we definitely put your investment dollars to good work. Even in a pandemic, our team was working extremely hard. And so this is just a look at our 2021 achievements for the year. If you'd like to see the full report of the items our team accomplished and still accomplishing in 2021, please go to our website at lakeshoreadvantage.com. Many of these items here are really led by Amanda Murray and her team, who are the business solutions leaders. So with that, I'm going to pass the floor on to Amanda to start diving into our data and our business intelligence report.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today to share some insights from our 2021 annual business intelligence report. As part of Lakeshore Advantage's business retention expansion efforts, our team, with the support of Greater Muskegon Economic Development and the Grand Haven Spring Lake Ferrysburg Chamber, interviews over 120 local business leaders to get their feedback on the federal, state, and local economy through a series of questions. As Jennifer mentioned, we meet with primary employers in the region who are companies making a good or producing a service, exporting that outside of our region, and bringing wealth back to our communities. The information we collect is confidential and invaluable to ensuring that our resources go to the highest and best use to continue our region's economic health. As a data-driven organization, we use the responses and insight collected to determine where we should best focus our efforts to support local employers, overcome barriers to growth, and produce this annual business intelligence report to share with you, our partners, to help inform your efforts and to show key points about the economic health of area employers and the region as a place to do business. So what did we see and hear from companies in 2021? Well, really strong, stable growth, largely rooted in our manufacturing base. Diverse manufacturing strengths ensured our region's economic stability throughout the COVID-19 crisis. One of the biggest positive changes we saw in 2021 was that 95% of companies reported increasing or stable market share. We've also heard a lot more about mergers and acquisitions as a growth strategy that companies are pursuing.
Yeah, and I want to mention, Amanda, this year was definitely a year for mergers like none other. Herman Miller, now Miller Knoll, acquired Knoll, now making them the largest furniture company in the world and still headquartered right here in our region. But it's important to note that once companies get to a certain stage, a lot of that increasing the market share is through acquisitions. And sometimes our companies are acquired and sometimes they are the ones doing the acquisition. No matter what, our team is working to maintain a relationship either with the leadership at the acquired firm or continuing to build the relationship as our employers grow. We also saw just last week, Hut Trucking was acquired by RLS Logistics. Now, we see this as a great sign of growth, and congratulations to Hut Trucking. And we'll be reaching out soon to connect with you in your new headquarters.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. And in line with the positive trend of growing market share, 83% of employers reported increasing or stable sales in 2021. And this is much higher than what was reported in 2019. Something that I think was really interesting is that 87% of employers reported that they anticipate introducing new products, services, and capabilities in the next 2 years. And so this tells me that while many of us had to pivot in 2020 and 2021, companies plan to continue this trend of adjusting their product mix to current and future demands.
And we really love companies that diversify and add new product mix. It makes them more strong, more efficient. A couple of fun ones. Well, my favorite one I want to point out is Hudsonville Ice Cream just took on the manufacturing of all the Little Debbie's ice cream line, which is now available in Walmart. So check that out. I got to try all the products, but that's a great example of new products and services from our local companies. We also saw companies like EBW Electronics, primarily focused on the automotive industry, diversify into LED lighting for indoor greenhouses. We want to see more and more companies diversify, add new products and services to make sure they continue to stay healthy.
So we've talked a lot about manufacturing. So why is manufacturing so important? In Ottawa and Allegan County, manufacturing accounts for 44% of GRP. So compare this to manufacturing throughout the US, only accounting for just over 10% of GRP. We're tied significantly more to manufacturing than most of the nation, and it's a huge part of our economy and economic vitality. Another important piece of the importance of manufacturing in our region is wages these positions are paid. When we look at the average manufacturing earnings per worker for manufacturing jobs compared to the average earnings per worker across all other jobs, manufacturing workers' earnings were about 30% higher than the average earnings over all other industries. In West Michigan, we have a diverse makeup of industry sectors within manufacturing, which is important because it can make us more resilient to downturns. To better understand this, we asked employers which industry sectors they support and found that 70% of companies are making things for more than one industry sector. So let's dive into this just a little bit further. Nearly 50% of employers interviewed reported they were in automotive manufacturing. This is followed by 40% of those interviewed reporting they were in furniture manufacturing. Consumer goods, advanced manufacturing, and aerospace and defense also made the top 5 industries our primary employers support. This diversification mix, I think, is one of the reasons we've remained strong and growing throughout the pandemic. It's also important to note that compared to other communities, this diversification gives us a distinct competitive advantage. This also shows that our workforce is skilled in making lots of different things, making ours an attractive region for growth and investment. Consider the change happening in the automotive industry. By 2030, half of new vehicles produced will be electric. With such a large concentration of employers in our region supporting the automotive industry supply chain, we know that companies have been preparing for the shift far before COVID. But as we've seen through the data we've collected, companies are creating new products, entering new markets, and increasing diversification. So Jennifer, I'd like your insight. Why is looking at EV so important for our region?
Well, as many of you know who've been following the press recently, we have been working really closely with LG Energy Solutions on a major expansion that we hope to move forward with our partners at the MEDC for our region. And that's really to manufacture lithium-ion batteries. And the reason this is so important, Amanda mentioned 50% of the vehicles by 2030 will be run on electric. So the average electric vehicle has 7 moving parts, whereas the internal combustion engine can have as many as 200 parts. So the supply chain is going to massively have to change and adapt to meet these needs. And to have that key portion of the electric vehicle manufactured right here gives us a great opportunity to continue to grow the rest of the electric supply chain. But we recognize we still have employers who are at risk, who are very much tied to the internal combustion engine. And our team will continue to outreach to them, figure out ways we can help them diversify, identify new industries, or grow in the lithium-ion battery space.
Thanks, Jennifer. And in today's global economy, we know that for manufacturers, it sometimes makes sense strategically for them to have locations in other regions in the US or across the world to be closer to their customers, their suppliers, or population hubs. In 2021, 31% of companies in our region reported having facilities in other states, and 25% reported having facilities in other countries. So it's important for us to understand the competitive advantage we have over other regions by having a diverse manufacturing base, a skilled labor force, and strong supply chain, so we can continue to retain and grow these employers.
Yeah, and if you haven't looked at exporting, there's a lot of great resources available locally. First, I want to give a shout out to our funds at the Van Andel Global Trade Center, who can really help you identify markets for your products if you're just getting started in exporting. There also is a great grant tool through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation called the MyStep program, which really can provide up to $15,000 in grant support for companies looking to explore new markets. This can be used for things like trade show, website development, even travel to help you identify those markets and grow there.
So now let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the challenges that we're hearing from employers. As in past years, lack of available talent was at the top of the list. New to the list this year is around supply chain disruptions. And these are both big, complex problems that won't be resolved overnight. 83% of employers reported issues around supply chain disruptions as their biggest barrier to growth in 2021. This is important because delays in the supply chain have rippling effects. Industry experts are saying that these disruptions will not be resolved quickly. Although just this morning I read an article that some economists had said that the supply chain disruptions may shake out later in 2022. So what did our local employers say? They reported raw materials as the most often disruption, with disruptions in products, assembly, and components following close behind. Steel was the raw material reported most often as a supply chain disruption, followed by plastic and resin, aluminum, and wood lumber, respectively. Not surprisingly, most disruptions employers reported were from international markets. So while employers look to diversify their suppliers, not everything can be controlled by the company. We're reading lots of articles about containers piled up at docks, ships that have to wait at sea for weeks, a lack of dock workers to load and unload, a lack of automation at ports, and a shortage of truck drivers to move the goods. Locally, we're hearing stories like long lead times to purchase equipment. For example, one company shared with us that they had a need to purchase a new forklift for their operations and it was back ordered by 2 years. Another company shared with us that the average wait time for goods from China has increased by nearly a month, and that the cost of sending a container from China to the US had reached a record high for them of more than $20,000. So as a manufacturing community, supply chain disruptions can impact cash flow, sales, and the bottom line, and it's going to be really important that we keep our eye on this issue going forward. Another top concern for business leaders in 2021 is lack of available workforce. In fact, 75% of companies interviewed reported recruitment problems. And while talent has been an issue for several years, it's being amplified by the fact that the labor force participation rate is 5% lower than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think, Amanda, it's important to understand what that rate is. It's really the percentage of civilian workers who are 16 years or older who are working or actively looking for work. This is the 67% for us is more than 100,000 people that are not in the workforce for various reasons. So many individuals chose to stay home with their children and watch them as uncertainties move forward. We had a lot of people drop out of the workforce earlier and did an early retirement. And so the message for employers right now is there are 100,000 people that potentially could get it into the workforce. So what is the secret? And I don't know, there is no big secret, but what I will say is employers need to be flexible and adapt. So we've seen some great examples like part-time manufacturing shifts, weekend-only shifts. We also saw Gentex open up a Spanish-speaking line where all of the individuals spoke Spanish, and that's been a great way to recruit talent. So looking at ways to be adaptable and flexible to bring those individuals back to work is going to continue to be key in the year ahead.
So let's now take a look at what positions are most needed. Not surprisingly, engineers, machine operators, skilled labor like fabricators and welders top the list. We're also hearing a high need for entry-level production labor, and we know wages for these positions have significantly increased in recent years. So generally speaking, we're hearing manufacturers are paying a minimum of $15 an hour for entry-level production. So what stands out to me though from this list of needed positions is that we make things in West Michigan, but we also design and innovate. So we need a workforce trained to fill these positions.
I love that, Amanda. And that's why we're so passionate about increasing access and affordability of higher education in our community. And we really want to commend Grand Rapids Community College and Muskegon Community College for having campuses in our region, even without a local millage. That's a big lift for those organizations. But I want to note that our students are still paying double to attend community college classes in those in-demand careers, so that we need to do more there as well. I also want to give hats off to Ottawa and Allegan area ISDs, both who've been training kids in high school on these in-demand programs. Now, I know many of these programs are at capacity and filled, so we need to figure out a way to open up more of those programs to meet this needs going forward. But I will say, if you're a parent of a teen and your teen hasn't visited either Ottawa or Allegan ISD's training centers, take them there. It's amazing. I wish they had it. They had training like that when I was in high school. It's just a whole different way to learn.
Thanks, Jennifer. And another solution that companies can and are really looking at is implementing Industry 4.0 technologies. So Industry 4.0 is a term used to encompass a wide range of technologies that allow businesses to control processes, enable cost savings, and capture data to understand their opportunities and risks more fully. Companies mix and match these technologies to help achieve their goal. Industry 4.0 isn't a new thing, but when we talk about Industry 4.0, we're talking about integrating technologies into existing manufacturing plant operations to maintain or increase a company's competitive advantage. So what are we doing at Lakeshore Advantage around Industry 4.0? As you may know, last year we were awarded a grant to start moving the needle in this area. In collaboration with our regional economic development partners at Muskegon and at The Right Place, we started collecting data to inform our work on how aware and prepared small to medium-sized manufacturers are currently to implement technologies into their processes. I just took a look at the data. We'll be collecting data for the next couple of years, but to date, over 60% of small to medium-sized manufacturers have reported that they are very or somewhat prepared to implement Industry 4.0 technologies. And this is great and tells us that companies are really looking at these technologies as a way to overcome barriers to growth. Interestingly, the biggest barrier reported is lack of expertise within existing staff to implement technologies. So again, this really just drives Jennifer's previous point home about the importance of our community education partners to train new employees to have the skills to operate these technologies or upskill existing employees in a space. So if you haven't taken the poll already and you're within the manufacturing world, we'll send the link out after this webinar so you can help inform our efforts.
Yeah, and I think it's great. There's so many good examples of small to mid-sized businesses that are really doing Industry 4.0 right. And so the first step in our process was really capturing those best practices in video. And so I want to give a shout out to Impactfab, who is one of our poster child for Industry 4.0. They are a small mid-sized manufacturer who has really taken on automation to complement their existing workforce, help identify new opportunities for growth. And they're learning as they're going, but they were willing to share their story and the success they've had. So when you get a chance, please go to i40.atthecenterwest.org for all of those stories and all of those videos to see the best practices. As Amanda mentioned, the preparation survey will also be there as well, and we encourage you to take that. Back to you, Amanda.
So we've talked a little bit about the state of local employers in 2021, and we've discussed some of the top barriers to growth business leaders are facing. So what does the future look like for West Michigan? And in one word, I'd say positive. So 69% of employers interviewed indicated they have plans to expand in the next 3 years. This is adding jobs, buying equipment, or investing in their physical facilities. And in fact, our project pipeline at Lakeshore Advantage has never been more full with active projects of existing companies looking to expand their operations here, or new companies looking for a building or a greenfield site to relocate to the area. However, the industrial real estate availability and cost remains a barrier for many of these projects moving forward. The industrial vacancy rate in Q3 of 2021 was about 3%, which is extremely low and presents an issue for companies looking for new space. So there aren't many buildings available, and the cost to build new is sometimes prohibitive. We're also hearing lack of workforce and cost of building materials as barriers for projects moving forward. So what do anticipated projects look like over the next few years? It's primarily what we've historically seen here in Ottawa and Allegan County. It's that small incremental growth. So these are smaller projects. They're expansions to existing facilities, companies currently located in our area that have just maxed out their space and need to add room to grow. I also want to note that we're seeing expansion projects take significantly longer than ever before, and we're not seeing a reduction in the cost of materials anytime soon. We know from our construction partners that buildings are coming in about 30% more than they did pre-pandemic. So if you're considering an expansion, my best advice is to give our team a call well in advance of construction. And I want to emphasize, because we get this question a lot, 18 months before a project begins is not too early to call us. We'll connect you with resources and partners that can help support and manage your project. So I'll conclude with that. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope Lakeshore Advantage has an opportunity to work with your company or organization in the near future. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Amanda. You're awesome. We're so grateful for your team. Last year was really a year of patience, perseverance, and the pivot. And our employers are continuing to do that and do it well. We've got some time for questions, and I think Beth is on the line. She's been monitoring the chat. One of the things I wanted to mention is if we don't get to your question, our team will follow up with you directly, individually. We will also send you all a link to this presentation and our business intelligence report, as well as some of these other surveys or data points we mentioned for all the participants on this webinar. So Beth, hit me with a question.
Yeah, hey, so we do have some questions here. So the first one is from DeWise Manufacturing. And Mark, he's asking about rising wages. And he says, we use the Employers Association to benchmark compensation, but what other resources are out there to help employers with competitive compensation packages?
Hey, Mark, I'm glad you tuned in, and thank you to you and the team at DeWise really just for investing in our work and just your continual growth. Great example of a company pivoting and introducing new products and services. So we're grateful for you. So hi to you and John. So it's kind of the wild, wild west a little bit when it comes to wages right now. It's interesting. Our team uses TEA as well, the Talent Employers Survey. We also gather together our HR advisory leads from our large to mid-sized companies once a quarter. And really, they've all been kind of talking about wages and wage growth. And we are seeing significant growth in wages well beyond what we thought was possible. So number one, I would say for Mark and your team, and if you're an investor, we'd love to have you join our HR advisory group and be part of that conversation and share that information. It is limited to Lakeshore Advantage investors. The other thing I wanted to say is when I looked at Bureau of Labor Statistics data, there's been nearly an 8% wage increase growth in Ottawa County this last year. So that is really you compare it to pre-COVID, which is barely at 5%. So that's a pretty big bump. Whether or not it's sustainable remains to be seen. But one of the things for employers is a lot of them just drive with wages. And I would really encourage you to go beyond wages and help your individuals to grow and develop their path line. in their pipeline for the future. And that's why we've been so excited to work with our partners at The Right Place and Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center on a new program, the Talent Pathway Program, really, which is designed to work with select employers to develop a map of needed credentials and skills to help employees go from entry level to sought after skill positions. It's a very intense program. It's limited at this point, but we hope this pilot will go gangbusters and we can get more resources from our partners at the MEDC to extend it. I do want to mention the application deadline for that program is February 16th. So if you're interested, that's also a follow-up that we'll send to all of you. It's a great way to look at that overall pathway and pipeline. So I think that kind of answers it, Beth. Yeah, another one for me before we kind of close out and give folks some next information.
I do. I've got another question from Kelly Springer at Metal Flow, and she asks, what incentives or programs are being discussed to help support expansion in our area?
Hey, Kelly, thanks for that great question. Again, another one of our growing employers investing, and really appreciate you. There's been a lot of work with our team and our members of Economic Development Leaders for Michigan, which is a statewide advocacy group really looking to beef up our state incentive tools. We've got more work to do to compete as a state, not only work on incentives, but also making sure there's a great business tax climate and regulatory climate for the community. Just late last year, there was a package of bills passed called SOAR, which is about a $1 billion fund to really help major transformative projects move forward for things like site selection, utilities, other big barriers to growth. At this point, I think a lot of the solar dollars will go to advanced energy storage or the battery space. But we hope there'll be room for more to do things like select sites to prepare for the future of our community. I also testified a few weeks ago to the House Commerce Committee on moving forward the Michigan Employment Opportunity Program. And this is really a new tool for expanding companies with wages above the median average to provide a tax credit for them. That tool is still being considered in the House, and we'll keep you updated on that, as well as a research and development tax credit that's being considered that can provide up to 15% of your qualified R&D expenses in a refundable tax credit. So we're pushing for those and more tools to help our employers be successful. But I would say the best thing that you can do is sign up for our e-newsletters. If you aren't on that list yet to receive those updates, you can go to our website at lakeshoreadvantage.com. And when those pieces of legislation move forward or are announced, that will mention information on those as well. But we're keeping our eye on it and we're pushing for more. So I think we're kind of getting to the end of time. One of the things I wanted to mention, if you have questions for Amanda's business services team, and you are a primary employer who export goods and services out of the region, this is Amanda's contact information. She would love to meet with you individually to see how we can help. Secondly, if you are not an investor and you're interested in investing and being part of our work, Beth Blanton, who served up the questions, is a great contact information for you as well. So there's her information. I know she would love to sit down with you and talk about that opportunity. For those of you who are investors, I want to preview an upcoming in-person event, which is Thursday, February 24th at the Miller Knoll Design Yard. And I know I'm going to say Herman Miller. I hope I do not, but Miller Knoll Design Yard. And this is really with Matt Stairs, who is going to preview the future of work from Herman Miller's perspective. They did a massive redesign of the Herman Miller Design Yard. So it's a chance for you to get a sneak peek, a tour, see it, and hear about it from Herman Miller's perspective. It is limited to 50 people and investors only, one per company. So please register for that. If you haven't, there's information on our website as well.
Contact Lakeshore Advantage to learn more about how we can help your business thrive in the West Michigan Lakeshore region and beyond.